There's nothing better than a cozy pair of PJs. What's not so good is PJs without pockets. We gotta do something about this. So let's add some pockets to these pants. It's actually easier than you think. Let's get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an inseam pocket. That is a pocket that's within the outer seam of the pants. Before doing this, I suggest you check out a pair of pants that you already own with pockets. It's a good way to figure out how it's constructed before you start going snip snip on the pants. You can also use these pants as a template for the new pockets. As you can tell from these pants, the pocket is actually secured at the top waist, which keeps the pocket from flopping about. I'm going to do this with these pants too. Looking at this pocket, you can tell that it extends past the opening. You can make them a little bigger or a little smaller. Just make sure that's a good size for your hand. So let's get started on this. I'm laying out the pants now. Using a piece of paper and a Sharpie, I'm going to outline the shape of the pocket. It doesn't have to look pretty, it just needs to get the job done. Just like this. Now that I've outlined the pocket, I'm going to add my seam allowance to the pattern, which is going to be 5/8 of an inch. Since I'm using these pants as a template, I'm going to measure the opening for the pocket. It looks like 6 inches. So I'm going to mark the 6 inches on the pattern. Make sure you leave the extra room at the top, which is going to go in the waist. That looks pretty good. We'll need this for later. Luckily, I have this gray flannel in my stash, which will work great with these pants. Now, time to cut out the pockets. I'm going to need 4 pieces, 2 for each pocket. I'm cutting out 2 at a time. You remember that mark that we made for the opening? We need to mark a dart onto the fabric so we know where it intersects at. So what I normally do is stick a pin in that point. Then I use some tailor's chalk to mark it. Make a little mark on both pieces. Do this for both spots. Do the same thing on the bottom side. So here we go, here's 2 pockets. Now we just need to add them to the pants. Simple, right? This is a seam ripper. This is going to be your friend and foe. I have many seam rippers actually in my stash because I use them a lot. Now it's time to rip open this side seam so we can add the pockets. Measure the length of your pocket opening and go a little bit further when opening the seam. I also need to open the waistband some for the pocket. Here we go. Now I got it all open. I put a few pins on the waistband to keep the elastic in place. I did this on both sides. Who knew sewing was so messy? I am always making a mess when I'm sewing. Am I the only one? So the seam allowance on the pants are actually just 3/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to have to make an adjustment with my pockets that I made to accommodate that. First though, I'm going to get the iron out and press the opening, just so the seam is a little easier to work with. So let's get the first pocket and we're going to line it up. Sometimes I get confused on how to place the pockets. I've sewn a few pockets backwards before. If you do that, it's no big deal. That's why you have a seam ripper. In order to make sure I do it correctly, I like to lay it out. Okay, you remember those notches that we marked earlier? Now they come into play. They are going to be your opening guide. So you'll be sewing from those notches to either side. First, I'm going to make a mark 1 inch down from the waist top. This will show where the opening is going to start at. I'm going to use this mark as the top of the opening. Now take your pocket and line up your dot to that mark. This is the inside of your pocket here. So make sure your seam is on the outside of the pocket. You want the nice seam on the inside of the pocket. First thing for the pocket is we need to sew the opening first. Do the same thing on the other side. Now that I got each side opening of the pocket sewn, I'm now going to sew the pocket together. And now I'm going to sew that together. Line the pocket up and pin it in place. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go where I had put the mark, and I'm going to go sew down from that point down the inseam to close this opening. We're going to sew all the way around here, all along the bottom and to the side. So close to being finished. All we have to do now is the waistband. After we sew the sides, we're going to tuck the top portion inside the waistband and then sew the waistband back in place. I pinned a lot of pins on this waistband just to keep it in place. Since it's a gathered waistband, I need to pull the elastic as I stitch so it will be straight. I'm going to tug from behind and in the front. And it's done. Finally, I can lounge around in my PJs and keep my cell phone with me wherever I go. Perfect. I love the contrasting color of the gray with this plaid. Looks pretty cool.